So if you've ever been curious why everybody LS swaps everything, like for real, they'll get a flat tire and they'll be like, what should we do? LS swap it. Burnout taillight? LS swap it. Why not throw a small block Chevy in there anymore? What happened to the small block Chevy? What does LS like legitimately bring to the table that makes people choose the LS over the small block Chevy repeatedly? And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. To the Jumbotron of knowledge. So the best way to look at it, just think of the LS as your wife's younger sister that's into fitness. Because honestly, that is how you would compare an LS against a small block Chevy. Now I get it. Nothing wrong with this guy. This video was entertaining, enjoyable to watch. You should definitely go check it out. I am not knocking his video or what he did at all. However, on the dyno, they threw a 5.3 against a 327 and basically made it seem that the small block Chevy was somehow equal to the LS. First things first, they went and threw race heads on the small block Chevy. Literally, these heads probably cost more than this entire LS engine. Then they went and took off the fuel injection on the LS and converted it to a carburetor. If you know anything about carburation, it is a restriction on your engine. That is one huge improvement you get with going with fuel injections because you're removing the restriction. So, they handicapped the LS and then they put race heads on a small block Chevy. That's not how you compare these two. If you want to do that, why not just take a ZZ4 or a ZZ632 that makes 1,000 horsepower and then put it against the 4.8 LS? What's the point of this comparison? It doesn't even make sense. Alright, so first things first. The LS is an iron block. Most modern, the LS is an aluminum block. Most small block Chevys, they are a cast iron block. So just going up to aluminum, you're going to get better heat dispersion. And it's just going to be better pretty much all the way around. So first thing we're going to look at is the heads. The small block Chevy went intake, exhaust, creating a hot spot between two cylinders, which I've actually ran into that when I was running a blower on my small block Chevy. I didn't know that you should not run vacuum secondaries on a supercharged engine, and I did, and it actually melted in between the two heads on that particular hot spot. And that's one of the reasons the LS head is better, is because they've eliminated the hot spot. So what we're looking at here, with small block Chevy, you got exhaust, intake, exhaust. Now here, right there, this is the problem right there. Exhaust and exhaust. So this little island gets insanely hot. It can create pre-detonation. You can get knocking in there when you start really to push things. Or in my experience, this actually melted and created a valley between these two exhaust ports because I just created so much heat in there by running into a lean situation. On the LS head, it goes intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust. Because they stay in that pattern, there's no two exhaust ports where they're touching. So that's one of the reasons the heads are better. Now we're going to touch on the heads a little bit more. But first, let's get into other reasons why the LS is just better all the way around. Deep skirts, and it's going to capture the crankshaft better. So what you're going to be looking at, instead of a half crankshaft capture, like the old small block Chevys, half the crankshaft sat in the block, and then you had caps on the other half of the crankshaft. With the LS, the crankshaft is still inside the block, and we're talking about 6-bolt main now. There's 2 side bolts going through, 4 bolts going down. The old small block Chevys, you could get it in 2 or 4 bolt. Superior design right here. It's going to reduce flexing. You're going to be able to handle a lot more power with a design like this versus a design like that. All right, now we got the firing order. As everybody knows, the small block Chevy is 1-8-4-3-6-5-7-2. What they did is they did the 4-7 flop. They went 1-8-7-2-6-4-3. This did 2 things. One, it smoothed out the harmonics inside of it because you don't have 2 rear cylinders firing right next to each other. And it eliminated where you run into a lean situation because you had number 5 and number 7 firing back to back. Number 5 drew out all the air and fuel in that part of the intake. Then number 7 fires and draws out the same thing. So it's not necessarily under a vacuum, but you could run into lean conditions when number 7 fired because number 5 already took all that air and fuel. So that's what it looks like. You'd have 5 and 7 firing back to back. So right here you'd have this one fire, boosh, then this one fire. So there's already a vacuum going through there, and then this one's trying to pull from that same exact area. When you do the 4-7 swap, now what's going to happen is number 5 is going to fire, and then you're going to go over here to number 4. So they're across from each other. That's going to smooth out the harmonics, and now it's drawing from a different area so you don't run into number 7 running lean. This is what the firing order looks like on the LS. This is what the firing order looks on the small block Chevy. All right, so Valvetrain, you're going to run 1, you're going to have straighter push rods. 2, the big one is coil over plug. So what's going to happen here with your LS is you have a coil for each individual plug. So as the RPMs climb, it's not a big deal. With the small block Chevy, you had 1 coil controlling 8 cylinders. So as the RPMs increase, this needs to charge faster and faster and faster. And you got your rotor going around. It hits here and hits here at like 5,000 RPMs. Now you're starting to cap out the ability of this single coil because it can't charge fast enough to keep up with that. Yes, you can get MSD coils and stuff like that, but we're talking about how it comes from the factory. With this only has to fire once, and then it waits for everything to go through again, so it has plenty of time to charge, and then it fires again. So this isn't going to be limited by spark when it basically comes to RPMs. Again, the faster and faster you spin this thing, the harder and harder this has to work, the weaker and weaker your spark's going to get, so you're going to start losing horsepower at the top end. Now we got the valve angle. So on a small block Chevy, your standard is 23 degrees. On an LS, it's 15 degrees, and in an LS7, the high performance one, you're looking at 12 degree. Then we have valve size. So your standard small block Chevy valve is a 194. That's where you're pretty much going to see across the board. Yes, there is some 202 exceptions for like race engines and stuff like that, like stuff that you see in a Corvette, but generally speaking, 194. A stock LS3 is a 216. That is a massive jump. So on a small block Chevy, a 202 is considered a race head. 205 is just something ridiculous. A 216, that's insane. That's 14 thousandths bigger than the 205. And the 205 is considered ridiculous. You couldn't even fit this size of a valve inside of a small block Chevy. These are just insane. Super huge valves. So what's going on with the valve angle? It's not just the valve angle, it's the design as a whole too. So, all right, here's the LS7 that's at a 12 degree. What they're trying to do is straighten this down so there's a straight line from the intake into the valve. There's no corners it has to take, and then it goes directly into the cylinder. Same with the LS3, straight line directly into the cylinder. Here's a cutaway of a small block Chevy. So the air's coming in, and now it's got to make a corner and go into the cylinder, and then it slams against the back of the cylinder and part of the head right there. This is not ideal for flow. Again, LS3, straight line in. Here, this will probably make it easier to see. Straight line into the valve, or straight line into the cylinder. This, you can't get a straight line. It's just not possible. You can kind of get a straight line from right here to right here. But as you can see, it way different. Plus, look at how small this runner is compared to this ginormous one. Now, to really understand how much bigger the valve is, I really need to have 2 valves and just put them back to back right here. I don't have those valves. Sorry, I can't do that for you. But you can kind of see the difference in here. Look at the difference in cylinder design, the difference in valve size. Like I said, it's kind of hard to see on this, but I can assure you this valve is huge compared to this valve right there. Massive difference. All right, now you're going to save about 100 pounds. So going from a small block Chevy to an LS, most LSs come aluminum, an instant 100-pound savings. Why does that matter? So in light vehicles like this one right here, this is the Jimmy, if this would have been an LS, it would have shaved 100 pounds off of it. We're going to pretend in this hypothetical situation, this is a magic situation, everything is exactly the same. There's no change at all. We're just saving 100 pounds by going in an LS. What would that really perform like on the track? So that vehicle weighed 2,900 pounds with me in the driver's seat. Shaving off 100 pounds would bring it to 2,800 pounds. That's 3.4% lighter. In the quarter mile, improvements are going to be from 0.12 to 0.14 seconds. I'm going to pick up 1 to 1.5 miles per hour in the quarter mile. Now, Realistically, it's probably going to be a little bit more on this because I'm taking weight off of the front end. It's going to dip down. I'm going to hook up a little bit better. I'm probably going to get just a touch more on this, but this is realistically what you can expect without bringing in any other factors, which is absolutely amazing. So just by going with an LS over a small block Chevy, you're automatically going to pick up, in that particular situation, 0.12 to 0.14 and 1 to 1.5 miles per hour at the end of the trek. That is wild. That right there is a huge reason just to go with the LS, just because of the weight savings on these smaller packages. That weight adds up. 3.4%. That's pretty freaking awesome. Anyways, I hope this video helped you understand why everybody goes with the LS. Because realistically speaking, like if you want reliable 100,000 mile horsepower with a small block Chevy, 450 is about the cap. That's where the LS starts. The LS starts where the small block Chevy ends. That's the best way to look at it. So if I want to stay 450 horsepower and under and keep things simple, keep like just running a fuel line and a power wire and the motor runs, not having to worry about an ECU or anything like that, okay, small block Chevy makes sense. If I'm looking to make big power, 450 plus, it really doesn't make sense to stay with a small block Chevy. Your best pick here is really like an LS. Probably start with like an LS3 and go from there. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching my video. If you'd like to help support the channel, click on that Amazon affiliate link in the description. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I'll kick back forward because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.